Francois Chapman, or Chappies, as known by most of the South Africans. Welcome to the podcast, man. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Fleuru. It's really a pleasure. Yeah, and after postponing it for a few times, I'm really glad that we're making it happen now.
I'm glad as well.
And right in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and I think now is always the best time. And maybe at the end of the time, everything's shutting down. Your brain is shutting down. We as entrepreneurs, we want to start shutting down because it's been a hectic year in the real estate.
Absolutely.
And you're in the real estate.
Yes. Yeah, well, for about 2 years now. And man, oh man, has it been a ride.
I think it's probably been a tough time to enter into real estate because we've been in for a while and we at least had a couple of good years at the start to get us going, give us some momentum, and you got in real difficult times.
I don't think it will never be difficult to start. It will always be difficult, but the degree of difficulty will definitely differ. Yeah. And yes, I agree with you. We jumped into real estate at quite a difficult time with the interest rates being higher. Just after it was the lowest ever.
Yeah.
Now it's just gradually increasing every quarter. But it's a challenge. It's like it actually motivated us more to do things differently. And so, yes, it's difficult, but I'm grateful for it because it helps you think differently. It helps you approach the challenge with a different mindset.
Yeah, and of course, when it becomes easy again, then you'll be ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
Because you're going the extra mile, you're doing the extra things. Yeah. You're used to doing so much more marketing, putting so much more effort into everything. Yeah. And we'll reap those benefits, hopefully.
I believe so as well. I mean, if you can make things happen when it's tough, how much more are you going to make it happen when it's a bit easier?
Of course.
So, but so far, we really we're enjoying the real estate industry. It's been good to us. The only regret I have is not jumping in a bit sooner. But so far, it's amazing. And we just can't wait to grow further into it and explore a bit more.
Yeah, I love it. Same here, man. I have a couple of topics that I want to talk to you about. And I first heard of you or saw you on Survivor. And this is not only because you're sitting right across from me, but you are one of the most entertaining people to watch. And I've thought about this. I wanted to know why I found you entertaining to watch. And I think personally for me, it was the dedication to the game. I think you upset a lot of people.
I did, yes.
With like really saying, listen, I want to win this thing and I'm going to do whatever I have to do.
I already won it.
Yes.
I think that's where the biggest upset came because that can come across as very arrogant, right?
Of course.
But I interrupted you now.
No, but I think a lot of people will hold back. And I think they have held back in games like that because they are scared to be perceived as that heavy, eager to win personality type. And I think you have that. But I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I see that as a real good thing. And like being in real estate. I mean, if you don't have that, you're not going to last.
Like anything in life, any business, absolutely. If you're not eager to win, if you're not eager to go out and make it happen in some other way and stand out above the crowd, then why are you actually here? And just getting back to the Survivor and maybe answering your question of why you might have found it entertaining, there might be a few reasons, but my theory is one of the following. If you see someone on TV and you kind of have the perception that they're arrogant, or let's just say you see someone like myself on TV, on Survivor, and you hear what I have to say about the game, and you hear that I say that I already won the game, you just haven't seen it yet. You are either going to want to see one of two things. And this is actually what got me onto the game because the producers disclosed it to me afterwards. They wanted to see me fall or see me go all the way. And
Either one of them is going to be entertaining.
it's going to be entertaining, right? Because you want to see this character fall flat on his face, or you really want to see him win. And I think what's going to determine on which side you lay is whether you understand the character's intention. So if this character wants to do it to prove something materialistic to the world, then you might want to see him fall flat on his face. But if this character's got the intention to prove that even the seemingly impossible is possible, and if you call it into existence, it might even happen. If you get that intention, if that is the character's intention, then the viewers might resonate more with the character and then want him to go all the way, because that brings a little spark of hope that the impossible is possible. I can actually start a business. I can actually get married one day. I can actually have kids, even though everything is against me. And I hope that it was the latter, that people resonated with myself and the character that was on TV, because it is myself, but with a little bit of sprinkles on top. Intentional, because I can tell you how nice this coffee is like this. And yes, it's quite good and just makes your taste buds tickle. And it's not going to be as interesting if I tell you, this coffee, I've never tasted anything like this in my life. It makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Is it true? LaRue, do you agree with me? Does it taste lekker and does it make you feel fuzzy inside? So immediately, it's still me. I just sprinkle a bit of
charisma flamboyance,
and you are coloring in a little picture for someone that's sitting in front of you. And that was also one of my approaches going into the game. I wanted every person who sat on a seat and watched the game and saw me do an interview or whatever, I wanted them to feel so, what's the word, intrigued by the story that they forget about everything else and just focus on this character and the mission, what he's about to do. And overall make a lasting impact. And the only way you can do that is to really grab people's attention. So yes, it was me that everyone saw on TV, but with a little bit of sprinkles. It's me telling the story to my 5-year-old to make it more entertaining for him, but also to the 5-year-old that's still within you and within her and within Oma and Opa, because we all still have that little child within us. And I think if you liked my character, or if you liked my journey, let's put it that way, my story, my 5-year-old most probably spoke to your 5-year-old, if I can put it that way. Does that make sense?
It does.
And maybe that might answer or give you some more clarity as why you enjoy the character. First of all, that I think there was hope, and then
also struggle, because most of the people on that island, they turned against you. You were basically a loner at the end with like 5 people. We don't want that kind of.
Yes, but then I understand why people do that, because I'm perceived even in real world, I'm perceived in a way that I'm perceived differently by different people, and most of the time it is the wrong perception. People's got an idea of who I am and what I do and how I'm going to treat them, but it's not the case. And I understand why they have that perception. It's because of this little mouth of mine that sometimes says things without thinking it through 100%, because I'm so in the moment and I see this picture in my head and I just want to describe it, but I don't think it through properly. And that's majority of the people that didn't like me on my season is because of that. It's because I said something not intentionally trying to hurt anyone, but not thinking it through and choosing my words carefully before asking them what it is. To give you an example, I won't call in names, but there was one lady, and I wanted to find out more about who she is, where does she come from, what does she do for a living, and then I asked her, what religion are you? Because I wanted to know what religion she is, and then she found that disrespectful, and we are on very good terms now. She's a lovely lady, but later on she approached me and said she felt offended when I asked her that, sorry, it wasn't religion, it was ethnicity. I asked her, what ethnicity are you? Because I'm a white male.
Yeah, and it's quite easy to see.
It is.
But sometimes with other...
But she felt offended.
I understand.
And I didn't understand how she felt offended. And later on she approached me and she said, you should have just maybe asked, what culture are you? So you see, it's in cases like that where I sometimes step on toes without knowing it. And then people will perceive it as intentionally attacking them or so, which is not the case.
But that's also probably a thing with that being our second language. I mean,
100%.
with all the synonyms, ethnicity and culture, one doesn't feel like a bad word and a good word to me.
To me, they are almost synonyms.
Yes.
It's like, if you ask me what's my culture, I'll say it's a bit of boer mixed with Irish. Well, I've got some Irish blood in me with my surname, Chapman. And I won't feel offended if you tell me I'm a boer or ask me what ethnicity I am. Right? I won't feel offended. But some people do feel offended. And I think it's my lack of cultural knowledge that leads to things like that. Another example was we had a case in the game where the lady called some of the guys, there's a specific word that you call a guy or a man looking down on ladies. I can't remember what the word is in English. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, sorry. But I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the word.
I can't remember the word. You just have to paste the word, yeah, okay? This is the word. Boom. There it is. I'll most probably remember it later. But it was mentioned in the tribal council, this specific word, where the ladies insinuated that the men didn't listen to their arguments or to their instructions in a specific challenge. And I didn't know what this word meant at that time. So
something like being misogynistic.
There we go. Here's the word. Misogynistic. All right. So misogyny. So they said we were misogynistic towards them. And I was like, what the hell does that word mean? Because of my Afrikaans English barrier. I'm fluent in English, but I'm not top of the notch when it comes to English. There's specific words that I still don't know the meaning of. And reading helps quite a lot.
Yes, of course.
But in that case, they had an argument about misogyny. I even had an argument about misogyny. I didn't know what it meant. So if you don't know the meaning of a word and you have an argument with someone, you can really step on a lot of toes. And in cases, that's what also happened. My first language is Afrikaans. Now you among people that's like their first language is English. They bring up something like misogyny. You chip in with your point of view, but you don't know what it's about. And looking back, I should have just there and then asked, listen, can someone just please explain to me what misogyny means? But you are so caught up in some of the emotions there that you don't necessarily think straight.
And you want to have your say as well. You want to have an input to the conversation.
Exactly. So, how do we get there now?
I can think that's really draining. When you were saying earlier that is you that was playing that role, but there's also another you that's a bit more calm, a bit relaxed. But I just think, I understand that it's you. It must be you, because how can you do 40 days or how long?
Yeah, well,
playing that role, it's impossible.
38. without revealing your true character.
Yeah,
You can't do it, especially under those very harsh, high pressure circumstances.
Bad sleep, bad eating, high stress situations, negotiations.
Bad weather, you cold the whole time, you miss your family. At some stage, the layers are bound to peel off, and it's going to reveal who you truly are. So I would say reality shows like Survivor really brings out the true character somewhere down the line. You can go in with a kind of a character you want to play, but the true person is going to come out somewhere down the line. And that's normally after day 3, when you've been wet, cold, you couldn't sleep, you're shivering the whole time, you haven't eaten, your stomach reminds you the whole time that you're hungry. You're like, listen, ek het nie nou tyd vir jou stront nie. Then, the real character comes out. And that's where the real challenge also lays. If you go into something like that, if you do not prepare yourself to be aware of emotions before the game, you're going to be even less aware of your emotions within the game, and you're going to create a fool out of yourself, which happened to quite a lot of people. And I don't know if you understand what I mean, but under those kind of circumstances, you start to experience emotions that you haven't felt in years. Fear, doubt, self-doubt, discouragement, just so many emotions that you haven't felt to that degree in so many years. And if you're not aware of those emotions, they very quickly take control of your vehicle, make you act in certain ways, and then right at the end of the game, if you got your plate of food again, your bed to sleep, and you look back at it, you're like, man, that wasn't me there. And in a sense, it wasn't you, because you'd let your emotions take over in that period. But in a sense, it was also you, because you allowed the emotions to do that. So I saw a lot of people unraveling emotionally, becoming kind of zombies controlled by the emotions as we went further into the game. And in anything like that, and if I say like that, like the game of Survivor, in a high stress environment in general, if you can practice the art of becoming aware of your emotions more often, you're going to have more control of your actions and overall more control of the situation. And very, very thankful that I went with that approach into the game, because you benefit from it a lot. It's not that I get it right 100% of the time. Believe me, you can ask my wife. I flip out quite a lot, and I think it happened in the game as well. But you should at least try to be aware of your emotions, your feelings, as much as possible, and then you won't do as much stuff that you're going to regret down the line.
I've heard that in Survivor, I don't know how true this is, but you, of course, you were there, and then you were able to see it afterwards. I've heard that they use certain videos to portray someone. They don't use some nice videos about you because you're the bad guy, and it's specifically to portray that bad guy. Is that how it happens? When you were there, this wasn't a bad person. I had a lot of nice interactions with this person.
Absolutely.
But they don't show that because they need to keep this role playing together.
Absolutely. So I think what people don't realize is that Survivor is also a story that has to be told. But within the story, there's numerous different storylines that evolve. But you don't have enough airtime to focus on each and every story. So that means you have to choose a few different storylines, focus on that, and then maybe cut all of the other footage that you have that's irrelevant to those storylines.
Just noise, and you have to take it.
And then unfortunately that means sometimes someone can be portrayed as even better or worse than what they actually are, because some of the stuff, it's not everything, and I believe producers will understand what I say when I say this. Some of this, the footage has to motivate storylines, but it's taken out of context. And anything out of context can really give the wrong impression. So, yes, it happens to a specific degree, but they also can't make you a murderer if you didn't kill someone. Does it make sense? Yeah. So they can only use what you gave them.
Yeah, and they can maybe exaggerate it by not showing the other part, but they're not making you do anything. It's not CGI.
It's not CGI. Yeah. So my perception after I watched the show, and also from a point of view going into the show, because remember I kind of 3 point of views. Was it not 3? It was doing the show itself and how it felt, looking at the show, seeing it back, and then also the point of view from your family and your friends. So you get kind of 3 point of views. But sorry, I've lost my train of thought now. What did I want to say?
You were saying about the multiple angles that you were able to see while in it, and your family looking from the outside, and yourself looking back at it afterwards.
Yes, but there was something that I want to tie to the previous idea. I can't remember now.
That's okay. We'll come back to it if you remember it. It doesn't matter.
We'll get back to it a bit later. But just in general, no, I can't remember. We'll get back to it later.
No problem. You touched earlier on the fact that you said you won already. This is done. It just needs to still happen, but it's done already. I assume you believe in manifestation and positive thinking and all those types of mindsets. Can you go a bit into that? How? Explain to me, what do you mean when you said, I won this already, and that was day one?
Yeah, so that was really, it's difficult just to explain it in a few words, but I'm going to try my best to do it. Once you start to practice prayer, meditation, manifestation, and once you really realize who you are in this world, that you aren't just a human being, that you are from a higher place, which I believe is God, and you have this opportunity to play the role of yourself in a material world. Once you start to grasp that idea, and you start losing the ideas that you were fed as a kid by different people, different walks of life, once you start to really discover the true you start to play around in the world. You're like, what will happen if I can see myself in a situation like that? Let's see if I can see it in my mind, can I really make it happen materially? Because we're here to play materially in love. That's now very physical. What's the right
Psychological.
word? Psychological, but there's a different word. You see, this is where the English barrier comes in again.
I can't help
philosophy. Okay, so this is where the philosophy comes in. I love the philosophy as well, but you can start make things materialize in this world if you understand who you are. And I went through a deep and long personal development journey before my journey on Survivor. I started showing a lot of interest in personal development at about the age of 21, where I started diving into Tony Robbins and Darren Hardy stuff, Robin Sharma, and within all of these within all of the teachings and the books I've read, and even Jesus, there's a lot of golden nuggets that I started realizing that you could start applying in your own life, like manifestation. I mean, manifestation sounds like something crazy and voodoo before I started going into personal development. But then you kind of start seeing it happen in your life as you dive deeper into whatever you learn. And then once it's happened once, you want it to happen again to a different degree. And I believe Survivor was like one of those things that materialized after I saw myself doing it. So first of all, you must kind of see yourself doing it, and then ruminate. Listen to that beautiful word. Like rethink it, re-see it over and over and over. And then chances are if your intention is right as well, chances are very high that it might materialize. And that's what happened with me. I saw this game on TV. I realized it's a freaking cool game because there's so many different factors that play a role. It's a challenge on so many levels: emotionally, spiritually, physically, socially. And I thought, I've gone through a process of about 10 years of personal development. How about we put it to the test and we go for the ultimate game? And I was like, how about we take it further? I see myself winning that game before entering. And then that was my approach. The idea was kind of planted, and I started ruminating on that and feeding that idea, revisiting the idea. And I literally already saw myself winning the game before we started. But little did I know what winning looked like. In my mind, it was like, yes, winning the title and going all out. But God had a different plan for me. It was winning so much more that you cannot add value to, that you cannot add a price tag to. And that was literally from the start. I said, I can see myself winning this. And the more I think about it, the more clearer the idea becomes. The more it starts to become a reality. And so you enter, you go through the next step, and before you see you're on the game. And it's quite scary to tell people that you've already won if you can fall flat on your face the next day. And I got to experience that as well the second time around.
And it might also just put a massive target on your back.
It might.
It probably does.
It did, but certain info you don't disclose to other people. So I didn't go around and disclose to everyone, I've already won, if you haven't seen it yet. Some of that info you keep to yourself. But to make it entertaining as well, you want the viewers to know that. And you want them to kind of question, but how's this guy going to make this happen? And also, I believe in intention quite a lot. If you have that intention and you're carrying it around, it's going to start rubbing off on the people around you. It's going to start rubbing off on the environment. And if it's a pure intention based on unconditional love, and you must stop me if you don't understand what I'm saying, but my intention in this case was to make an impact through the game by winning. I don't know what winning looks like, but I want to go make an impact. If it can make a lasting impact in someone's life, that's maybe winning in itself.
So would you classify yourself winning that game?
Absolutely. Yeah,
I would agree.
I feel I won the game, and we can decide on what categories, but there's so many different aspects of winning the game, and I'll go through that now. Just want to come back to the intention. If you have an intention that's pure, it's based in unconditional love, your entire world will start conspiring to make this happen for you. Even the people around you, even the enemies will start to make this, will do things without knowing that it actually helps this greater intention that you have. And it so happened in the game that some of my enemies actually, some of their actions paved the way for me to go a little bit further and to make even greater impact. So I hope that answers your question of how I see myself winning. And if I had to categorize the winning in my opinion, if you leave a mark in someone's heart, if you impacted someone and they'll always remember how you made them feel at some other stage in their life, whether they saw you on TV or whether they had a conversation with you around the table, that's a win, because they're going to carry that with them for the rest of their lives. And not only that, that feeling they have might have caused chain reactions in other people's lives around them, which means you haven't only made an impact in one person's life. You've made an impact in that person's life and the people they meet and where the people they meet. So where does it end? So that's a win in itself for me. The second very, very valuable win for me was to really discover that you don't need to win in order to win. You don't need to have that car. You don't need to have the title. You don't need to have the business. You are already winning by just being alive and by being able to love. And I got to that point by losing everything I associated myself with. Not only did I lose my body, my muscle mass, I lost 12 kilograms of muscle mass and fat, so I really looked like someone standing next to the street. Before I entered the game, I lost my business. While you're on the game, it feels like you lost your family because you haven't seen them. You don't have a bed to lay on, so you don't have any possessions. You are literally zero. And right at the end, when the title was in my grasp, I lost that as well, which was one of the greatest gifts. Because after the last challenge, laying on the grass, looking into the sky, this blanket of contentment just came over me, and reassuring me that you are enough here where you have the least, where you've lost everything now. Now you've lost everything. Now there's not even hope of you winning the game anymore. Right? That's what the ego says. And that was a win over there. Realizing that even with nothing in this world, you are still enough. And you win. And all the other stuff is additional. Your family, your whatever you own, your vehicle, your house, your business. That's just additional. And that was one of the greatest wins for me that I believe a lot of people only realize on their deathbeds.
Or with a close call, close death encounter.
Near-death experience.
Yeah, I have a very similar story, maybe a bit more dramatic. But after my accident, I had a lot of issues dealing with it because I didn't know who I am anymore. Because I know you shouldn't do it, but you connect yourself to what you do and what you have.
100%.
You are a builder, a developer, whatever you put in your title, and you play rugby and you train, you gym and you hunt. What if you don't do those things? Who are you then?
So, who are you then? How many people struggle with that?
I struggled with that because I've never had that problem because I could always do those things. So I never had that taken away from me to start asking, okay, well, who am I? And then when you get confronted with that, that's like a early midlife crisis.
Absolutely.
It's a real difficult thing. But again, having that epiphany is
what's that worth
extremely
to you?
Valuable. I mean, that changes perspective totally. I mean, it doesn't take away the fact that I want to be a successful entrepreneur. I want to drive these cars or whatever. It doesn't take those things away, but it puts it into perspective. And then you realize the value or the measure of that against the measure of the other things that you then decide is valuable. And that is, I think that is for most people. I mean, if you can tell someone, go play this game, and this is what you will get out of it. I mean, if you have either that option or get paralyzed.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that
You would rather go for the first
getting
option.
back from the one is a lot more difficult.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think,
And some people don't get back from these type of challenges.
Yeah.
It's the end of the road for them. And unfortunately, some of these people even take their own lives because there's absolutely no hope.
Yeah, and no vision. I think being able to see, and I think that ties in with the manifestation, just being able to picture how it would look if you were happy, how it would look if you were successful in your eyes. And that, luckily that is changeable. That's a changeable metric. Success is not set in stone. There's multiple ways of being successful. So if you can change that perspective for yourself, you can change how you feel, you can change how happy you are, you can change how content you are. And I think that is, if that is what you got out of Survivor, I mean, what a good pitch for Survivor that is.
Absolutely. But here's the unfortunate thing. That's not what everyone takes back home.
I agree with you. I can believe that.
And once again, I believe it comes down to what is your intention for doing it. If you want to grow, then you might have that type of experience. But if you're chasing the money and you're chasing fame, life's going to teach you some other lessons to try and bring you closer to what's really meaningful. And sometimes near-death experiences isn't enough to really wake up people.
Yeah.
And that's very unfortunate for me to say that. And you say you also struggled with knowing who you really are. But isn't that still a continuous thing? As long as we live, we'll always have this temptation to connect who we are to what we have and what we do.
At that moment. Yeah.
So it's a continuous practice and a continuous struggle. And that's why where I believe a lot of the biblical teachings also come in, that your struggle isn't just
Flesh and blood.
Flesh and blood. It's the untangible. Because if I have to ask the world or anyone in the world now who they really are, 99.9% of people are most probably going to give me the answer of the ego. Which is what we have and what we do, which is not who we are. But I'm going to want to pose that question to you and just find out of interest, after your experience, if someone had to ask you now, who is LaRue, and what answer would you give them?
I think my answer at the moment, because I'm for the last 3 years or so, I've been in a self-development phase, because I felt I had to focus on a lot less physical things, because I'm disabled in that way. I am a lot less physical, and that's physically what happened. So I have pivoted to the untangible. I would say it's probably a bit of a cliche, but being a husband, being a friend, and I think it's easy just to say being a friend, but that is connected to so many other words. Being there for people, being a caregiver, an advisor, being someone else can lean on. That is the type of thing that I've started to pivot to, and to try and focus on those traits. If I was this person who I think I am, how would I look? What would my character traits be? How would I act with you now? How would I act when I get at home with my wife? What type of son would I be to my parents? What type of brother would I be? And it might still, this thing will still develop. As you said, it's never done. You're never done with finding yourself. But at that moment, it's those type of aspects that I lean into and try and improve. Because if I think okay, I am, or I have these traits. But then if you're honest with yourself, there will be a lot of traits that you don't want to tell someone, this is me.
Yeah.
Because it won't look good. But that gets you thinking, and that gets you present to start thinking, okay, maybe I should react as my ideal self.
Mm.
And if you do that long enough, you'll become that person.
So that word ideal self. So what is the deeper core? Let me just put, what is the core of the ideal self? If I had to ask you that question, what would you say it is in your perspective? If it's one word, if it's a sentence. And the reason why I ask you is because I wanna also tell you my answer to it.
I'll probably take a bit of time to think about
Okay.
it, but you go so long.
So I believe if you ask people who they are, those answers are going to change as they go through life. And also as they develop, both spiritually and mentally. So my answer also changed over the past few years. So if you asked me who I am 3 or 4 years back, I would have told you I am an entrepreneur. It's very adventurous, and I want to make a big impact in the world. That's still true, but my answer changed a bit over the past 3 to 4 years, and it's mainly been because of a few different experiences, including Survivor, but there was also a few very, very deep meditative experiences that I've experienced, that I've had, my wife and I, during COVID. And there's one specific experience pulled away the veil completely and made me realize who I actually am. And it comes down to something so basic, but we make it so much more, our minds make it more difficult because it's so,
Simple.
it's so simple. So our minds try and complicate it. But the realization I had was, I am unconditional love in a vehicle called Chappies. And this vehicle's got a few buttons. It's got an adventurous button. It's got an entrepreneur button. It has a father button. It's got a husband button. It has, it's got a few very cool buttons and functions. But my core being is unconditional love. And also now referring to the biblical teachings, if someone asks you who God is, I believe He's unconditional love. But we are from Him. We are His children. We are His sons and daughters. So then if He is unconditional love, aren't we as well? And then if that becomes a real experience, it becomes so embedded in who you are that you want to start approaching everything else you do in unconditional love. So that when you wear your cap of being a dad, it's like you're still a dad, but you know what the core is. You know who you are. Your unconditional love in the form of LaRue having an amazing time with his little one right at that moment, and nothing else matters there. In the boardroom, you are LaRue, the businessman that wants to make things happen and impact people's lives around you because you are love. And you cannot make a positive impact if you do not operate out of that unconditional love. So just to summarize, that ideal self for me is unconditional love. And as cliche and weird as it sounds, I believe the people who's experienced it will most probably know what I'm talking about. And it's a very few selected people that get to experience that. And there's a few ways you can experience that, but it's normally associated with near-death experiences as well, where you lose everything in a moment, and you get to your core being where you really realize, wow, this is what I am. I've got nothing else left. This is what I am. I'm love. and that's enough. So that's what my answer would be. Unconditional love, but I've got a few hats that I put on. Entrepreneur, adventurer, husband, musician, artist, crazy creative, actor. And what drives me to try on as much hats as possible is one little lesson that I've learned or just heard of. I haven't even read the book yet. But there's this book about a person who's interviewed a few people who are on their deathbeds. Do you know about that?
What's the name? I know the story that you're telling.
Yeah. So I can't remember what the book's name is, but I've just heard this one idea, and that's one idea has had such an influence on my decisions in life as well, is that when people are asked on their deathbed what they regret the most, it's not necessarily the things they have done. It's the things that they have not done. They regret not doing that. They regret not trying to start their business. They regret not spending time or more time with their kids. They regret not moving to the place they always dreamed of. And that had such an influence on my decisions that I'm like, I'm not going to regret. I'm going to try and regret nothing at the end of, when I might lay in my deathbed, if that is how it's going to be. So let's try everything that within reason, obviously, because you only have so much time and you only have so much energy.
But I mean, you want to gather life experiences.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why I try and wear as many hats as possible, not necessarily all at the same time. I want to just make sure I enjoy this roller coaster as much as I can. Downs and the ups. We tend to, while we're on this roller coaster of life, we tend to wish that we can just get out of this down. But even the down is an experience that we should be thankful for, because you get to experience certain emotions that the human being can experience in that moment. Emotions you went through with your accident, I can't even begin to imagine what that should have been the first 6 months after your accident.
Yeah.
How many times did you actually just wish that it would pass and that you would wake up the next morning and just be gone?
Yeah, unfortunately, that happens a lot because we want to get out of discomfort. We don't like discomfort. And I'm in discomfort most of the time. But you learn to get something out of it. You become friends with discomfort. It's a difficult thing to do.
It is, but it's so valuable to do that, to start embracing it. And the benefits for me is twofold. By embracing it, you accept the fact that you are experiencing discomfort now. And that, in a sense, it's already a privilege to experience any kind of emotion. And secondly is, if you experience the opposite, you are so much more thankful for it. So, and I don't necessarily mean, I don't understand to what level of discomfort you've experienced, but you must probably also add a level of appreciation in a lot of other areas of comfort that you didn't have in the past.
It easier, and like you said, dealing with the difficult times, those nice times are so much better.
So much more valuable for you.
And it would have been something that That's just how it is.
Yes.
And now you can really appreciate it.
Exactly. And unfortunately, our human nature tend to forget what discomfort feels like until we experience it again. And we tend to appreciate the good, like comfort, until we experience discomfort again. So I believe it's natural to go through life experiencing these different phases of difficulty, discomfort. It's part of life. You're always going to have it. Make peace with the fact that you're going to have the ups and the downs, and maybe try and look at it differently, even though it is very difficult to do it while you are down in the dumps. You have to believe that there's a greater good in whatever you are experiencing at that moment. And
I also think a lot of the time, it's not that something good is destined to happen with your situation, but the potential is there. And that's where you need to take action to make sure that you get the positive out of this negative situation. Because a lot of people say that, this is a negative situation, but I guess something good will come out of it. No, probably something good won't come out of it. You need to find the angle which you can be better and can learn something and benefit from this.
You need to
tragedy.
first of all believe that something good will happen, and secondly act. You have to take some sort of action, moving you closer to the possible outcome. And I think we fail as human beings. We fail at both. We first of all don't believe it 100%. You've got a lot of doubt in you, and because of the doubt, you do not take any action, which means the possible positive outcome might not ever happen, or you might not experience it.
Yeah.
So
we might be a bit short-sighted. We're just seeing now. We're forgetting 2 months back. It was great, and I saw a video of a bunch of actors. George Clooney and a couple of guys. They were sitting and talking, and the one guy said one of the biggest lessons he has learned through the years is this too shall pass. When it's going great, this too shall pass. When it's going bad, this too shall pass.
absolutely.
Nothing stays the same. It does pass. And that is a motivator for when it's going bad, but it's also just to keep you level-headed when it's going great. It's not going to stay this
100%.
way.
Reminds me of the runaway horse story. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
And it's if you don't know the runaway horse story, just go Google it.
Chinese parable.
Yes,
Oh.
which I like to use that parable quite a lot because people can see it happening with the horse and with the farmer and his kid. But we struggle to see it in our own lives.
Yeah. It's nice to hear about it in the story.
It is.
But you can't see where it's really applicable in the situation right now.
But you have to put yourself, you have to force yourself to try and see how those dots connect in your own life. And the way people can do it is by starting off with something they really appreciate today and kind of reverse engineering and see how stuff in the past actually had an influence on what you feel today and what you experience today.
How that led up to
up to that, and how if one thing in the past changed, you might not have had what you have today. Which is, it's difficult to do, but once you start doing it, it becomes easier. Example that I can just share with the audience is, I would have never jumped into real estate if my business didn't fail during COVID. I would have never met my well, let me give you a better example. At varsity, I studied mechanical engineering. My second year, my dad died to suicide. It was a very emotional experience for me. So in that second year, I cheated at varsity. I was expelled for a year. In that year, I became more clued up with producing music, making my own type of music, performing live. So we had band members, and it just happened to be that one of the band members' best friends was my wife. So I met my wife through this band member. So now, if you go reverse engineer all these points, my question would be: would I have met my wife if my dad didn't take his own life? Would I have met my wife if I didn't cheat? And cheat in varsity, right? If I wasn't expelled for a year. So just to give clarity, I went back and completed my entire degree, so I got it. Now that's the ego speaking again. You see, it's irrelevant info. But you start to see how certain things happen in your life that was bad at some stage, but it played a bigger role in the bigger picture.
It was necessary.
It was necessary for you to take a specific action that was most probably also bad at some stage, but in the bigger scheme of things, it turned out well. So now, if someone tells me, listen, I can bring your dad back, but that means you might lose your wife, what are you going to do? If someone gives you that opportunity where they say, we can go back in time, we can stop your dad from taking his own life, which means you won't go through the emotional stress, you won't cheat at varsity, you won't be expelled for a year. But this is where we're going to stop. We can't tell you whether you're going to be with your wife or someone else. And I want to pose that same question to you. If you have to look at your accident, what share does your accident have in some of the amazing things that you enjoy today?
I think I have had some struggle with this because luckily we can't change it. We can't go back. So
it would have been chaos.
I don't have to make the butterfly effect. Or what's that movie?
Have you seen the Spider-Man with the... Was it the latest Spider-Man with the multiverses and stuff?
No.
One thing changes and then just all the other multiverses spin out of control because one guy went back into the past, changed one thing, and then everything is just chaos. But do yourself a favor. It's really one of the best movies that show what could have happened if you had the ability to go back and change one little thing in the past, one little thing that has a chain reaction in everyone's lives. Butterfly effect.
Yeah. That is like an old movie, but also the guy, he gets to make a different decision and then he sees how that plays out. And then he can go back to that same, and he does like 10 different variations of the same thing. But yeah, so I'm really glad that I don't have to make that decision because I have taken the decision to get the positive out of my situation. A lot of people have asked me...
Even though it seems impossible that you can say that.
Yeah, but a lot of people ask me, how can you be positive? The easy answer is, there's only two options. Have you ever been negative and down in the dumps? It's not nice. It's not fun at all.
Yeah.
So for me to decide that for myself for the rest of my life, that would be foolish. I have to live this life. So I have to choose, I'm going to be positive, I'm going to make this work, I'm going to get the best out of life. The life that I've left, I'm going to squeeze it. But I have struggled with that thought experiment because it's probably also the ego talking, but I can easily tell myself, you would have figured all of this out without having an accident. There's a lot of successful, good people that didn't have an accident. So why did you have to have this major event to get you on the right path? Couldn't it have been a friend or someone else? And then I learned the lesson from their situation.
Yes.
Because I think I might have an impact on some other people.
Yes, but maybe you were too hard-headed to learn from other situations. That happens to a lot of us.
Yeah.
We have to go through those situations ourselves in order to learn whatever we should learn to become the best version of ourselves that will impact more people.
Yeah.
So do you believe that your accident contributed to you maybe having a greater impact on the world outside there?
I think that must be. I think it must be because it's such a tale of resilience and perseverance and going through something really tough. I think I think that gets a lot of grace from people. People like to see that. I don't mean they like to see other people struggle, but they like a story where someone was dealt a bad hand, and they could persevere through that.
It breeds hope.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now, and I think a lot of members, viewers will agree with me, is that your accident most probably contributed, even if it was just to one life out there, not taking their own lives, because I saw LaRue lost function in both of his legs. He's in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Look at what he's doing. He's building a business with his brother. He got married. They're pregnant now. He's having a little boy. You're having this podcast. If he can do that, there's hope for me. I just lost one leg, or I lost one arm, or I lost an eye, I lost a girlfriend. And that, in a sense, for me, is once again a win. And just by looking at it from that perspective, that I believe the impact that you're making without two legs might be greater that you would have made with two legs. Makes me also think of that one guy who's got no arms and legs, motivational speaker. Can't remember what his name is, but I've seen him at my high school years ago. But this guy is making such a great impact. His enthusiasm, his optimism is through the roof. And if that guy is in a building and someone who's just lost his a relative or lost a limb or lost a business, hears that guy speak, that breeds hope, and maybe just gives that guy the courage to push through another week, which might change his entire life. Then not having any legs and arms might be worth it. It's really difficult. It's easy for someone to say that's not in your position, but you will be able to say that whether it is worth it or not, because you are the person that has experienced that.
Yeah, and I think I've dealt with it in a sense. I also have hope in Neuralink, in miracles, I actually have a list of ways which can change my life again, which can heal my disease. So there's multiple reasons which I looked for very hard to give me hope, because the doctors told me there's no hope. And that's currently in the medical field, but I know they said 2 years back, they said a lot of things about the current situation in the world, and they were wrong about most of it.
Oh, I mean, 50 years ago, heart transplant patient, there was no hope for them. And things have changed.
It's just impossible until it's done. Then it's not anymore. Elon Musk is busy with it. Neuralink, it's happening. They are doing, I think this year they are doing 6 implants of the brain implant, and then with a receiver in the back to bridge the gap in the spinal cord.
Wow.
They have a 6-year trial. I think by the second year it's like 120 participants. Next year it's like 500. It's about 20,000 at 2030. So that is a lot of hope that you can get from that.
Yes. I mean, and for a lot of people it might seem stupid, you having hope in something like that. Because for a lot of people, a heart transplant was impossible 50 years ago, or how many years ago. But what is important is that you have something to hope for, but not necessarily let the current moment, current situation pass you by without appreciating it.
Of course.
And I think to have that kind of balance, to hope for better things, but to really enjoy the now.
And appreciate what we have now, because now you'll never get it again.
Yeah, because there's certain things that you're not going to experience again once Neuralink works.
Yeah.
That you're experiencing now.
I might be past my 30s.
Yeah.
I might be past raising small kids. I might be past the young years with my wife.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that, despite the fact that they might get my legs working again, I would have missed out on a lot if I stopped living waiting for that thing to happen.
Really appreciating what you have right in front of you.
Yeah.
And that is a constant struggle for us as human beings as well.
Yeah, and I think for everyone.
It is.
You don't have to be in a wheelchair to be sad about your situation. I always say your most difficult thing that happened to you is the most difficult thing that happened to you. Me being in a wheelchair or being paralyzed is the worst thing. So it's right up here. If there's someone, he's in matric and his girlfriend just dropped him, and that's his worst thing, it's also there. It's the same emotion that we are both feeling. Someone looking from a distance might say, listen, you're overreacting a bit.
Yeah.
But
to them,
that's not how emotions work.
Yeah.
They feel in the moment, this is the worst thing that's happened to me, and that's how I experience it. And that's, I think, just that thought taught me empathy. Because you can sit there and tell me any story, and I can just think, I can beat that.
Yeah.
I can beat that story.
Yeah.
And that's not how it should be.
The challenge, I think, or something that actually must be done, in my opinion, in the world, is to recalibrate that idea of what is the worst thing that can happen to me. Because the point I want to make is some children take their life because of a bad report. Is that the right word? Bad school marks. I've had people in my school do that. Of bad financial situations. My dad was one of them. You know, he was a doctor. He had some depression, and at that stage, finances didn't look good. But the point what I want to make is, what if there's a way that we can really just help the schoolboy wants to take his own life, to recalibrate and show him that yes, it is quite bad to have bad points, but it's not the end of the world. We get sucked into that lie, and all our hope is stolen. And then when our hope is stolen, the only way out is kind of to just give up, right? To draw the line. So that's something that I'm very passionate about, because I've been a victim of suicide, if I can put it that way as well. If I see children taking their own lives, I mean, not just children, but people in general, I just wish there was a way that we could get to those people earlier and help them really look at their situation and make them realize that it is just a situation and it's not worth their lives. Getting very deep and emotional now, but the way we look at things play a massive role in how we are going to perceive life, and whether it's going to be a joyful one or not. And there might be people with no arms and no limbs enjoying life more than people with a perfect, healthy body. But battle is not between flesh and blood.
Yeah. Chappies, this is really good, man. I actually didn't get any of my questions that I wrote down.
No, it's like, I think once we start talking about what really matters in life, you cannot stop talking about it. And we do not speak about it enough. Mainly because I think people are scared of what other people are going to think of them.
Yeah, and maybe just opening up makes you vulnerable.
It does. But if that vulnerability can reach one person and help them think differently about their own life, isn't it worth it? So we must, as people and as men especially, have more vulnerable conversations like this. It's very, very important. And not necessarily just in church, because I feel church, not just church, but society in general sometimes sets this standard or this idea that you cannot talk about certain stuff in public. But I feel we should do it, especially the more emotional stuff that we are under the impression we're not allowed to talk about.
Yeah, and it's probably not telling people to talk about it, it's talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we should have more open conversations like this, and I can go on and on, especially when we go to the I forgot the word again. It's my English barrier. Psychology side of things. Psychology is such a deep field for me, and it plays a role in our business as well. But psychology and your worldview, all of those things kind of play a role in how you're going to perceive life and who you think you are and the impact you're going to have in life. So if we can dive into psychology and mold it every now and then, if you are open to mold certain ideas, then your life experience is probably going to be a bit better. You're going to realize this vehicle of yours it's got an aircon. Wow, that's really cool. It can actually go 120 on the highway, maybe 180 every now and then, not just 80. Oh, and you have people in the back seat that you can drive with. It makes the experience so much more fun if you're open to learn. One of my mentors always told me, and it's something that he's most probably read as well, but the most open person in the room is the most powerful person. Is that the right? Not powerful. It's the person that can most probably influence the most. So if you go into a conversation with the idea that you can learn something from this person, you are going to walk out there a richer person, and you must probably also going to have a greater influence down the line in other people's lives. But we tend to close ourselves to other ideas out there. And I don't say be open for everything, but don't go into the conversation thinking that you cannot learn anything from this person. You have got the experience. Because there's a great teacher that I know of that said we should be like these children. We can learn from them. Let the children come. So, that makes me open to learn anything from anyone. It's make me so hungry to learn things from people because my experience of life just becomes so much more colorful. And then along with it, the impact that you have is going to be greater, man.
Of course.
So we should have these conversations that stretches people's minds and stretches the psychology, philosophy, so that we all can just really enjoy this ride a bit more.
I agree 100%. And I didn't know it was going to be such a deep conversation. I knew you had a lot of depth. I actually was looking at the angle of real estate and gameplay and that type of thing, but you can't block out the depth.
Those are just ads, Larry.
Yeah.
If this was the last conversation I had on Earth, and if it was the last conversation you had on Earth with someone, you would most probably want it to mean something to someone. So if you only had 2 hours to speak about something, why don't we just speak about the stuff that actually means something? Now and then the ego might want to pop up, and people, ego might want to just put up its hand and say, I'm here as well. But if we can try and focus on what really matters, I think that it would be 2 hours spent wisely if it was the last 2 hours. Just being a real man. We as gentlemen especially should have these chats more often.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, and be open to really experience more emotions, be more vulnerable, freaking shed a tear if you have to. I will even hug you. you know. Even though it was very weird for me to see two guys hug each other back in the days, you know. It's like, it's just unconditional love, man. Yeah.
I really like that. I wanted to touch on one other thing. Well, actually, it's a two-part. Number one is, how do you determine what to want? How do you decide what are things going after and reaching for in life? And then secondly is, once you have decided that, is how do you make that tangible? How do you get that like into a goal setting frame or something like that? Because I think a lot of young men, they just want that car or that pretty lady. They don't know anything about it. It's just, she looks good, I want that, and maybe a fancy house or something like that. But I think we have learned a lot by seeing this happen so many times and those people being unfulfilled. So what are the things that we should want to want?
Okay, so your question is how to determine what we want and how to actually get that, right?
What is meaningful enough to strive for?
Very good question. I love this. It sounds like we're going into a Jordan Peterson podcast now. You know, I don't know if you know Jordan Peterson.
Of course.
I love that guy, and he really helped me structure my thoughts and my words as well, my thought process. Still trying to really implement what he's teaching because he's really good at it. But nonetheless, getting back to the question, in order to know what to want, you have to first know who you are. And once you have clarity of who you are, you can then have more clarity on what you want. And what I mean about that, or what I mean with that is, once you realize that you are unconditional love in a specific vehicle, you look around and you start noticing what functions this vehicle has. So I am in a, what vehicle can I give you as an example? I'm in a Mercedes-Benz. It was the first vehicle my father bought me that time. Okay, but I'm unconditional love in this Mercedes-Benz, but this Mercedes-Benz is now chappy. So I'm going a bit philosophy here as well. Right? I'm putting that into the bucket. You realize there's certain functions that you have. So this vehicle of mine is quite creative. It's quite energetic. This vehicle loves people. It loves business. It loves risk. So now you're going to ask yourself, what can I do with these functions? The want starts to reveal itself once you start playing around with the functions. And that's really cool for me. I don't think anyone knows what they want from the day that they are born. We go through life and you're like, whoa, I can lay a brick. I can paint a wall. Maybe we can buy homes and flip it. Maybe we can start a business out of that and call it Big Bond. Maybe we can take it a bit further and further. The idea that I want to bring over is, if you are not going to start experimenting with the specific tools that you were assigned, that this vehicle was assigned, you won't ever get to what you want. You won't ever have a clear picture of that. But once you start experimenting, you start pressing buttons, and you start turning up the dial, and the want becomes clear. And in my case, I just want to make it more clear for the listeners out there. In my case, throughout life, I tried out so many hats. And you very quickly realize which hat you don't want to wear again and which hat you do want to wear. And along with that comes a greater need to use this hat in order to go and make a greater impact out there. but now it's still airy-fairy. So how does that greater impact look? For me, it looked like, okay, the buttons I had was all of the previous ones I mentioned: creativity, adventurers, leader. There's a leader button. There's a motivation, optimist. There's a few of these buttons. So slowly but surely, I started seeing myself as an entrepreneur, where I can go out and apply all of these skills and make influence. But how about entertainment? Maybe I can go out there as well, try and do that. But not only entertainment, I love this personal development side. So wouldn't something like Survivor, be the ultimate experience where you can throw all of this stuff into the mix and you can really put everything to the test? So it might be I hope it makes sense what I'm saying. Slowly but surely, the one starts to reveal itself. And in my case, it is to be a successful businessman. It is to be a successful entertainer. To be a loving husband. To be a loving father as well. All of those play a big role. But those ones start revealing themselves. And the moment they've revealed themselves, you can choose whether you want to actually go for it or whether you want to pass on it, because you've got free will, you've got a choice. And normally, when you decide to go for it, the want becomes even bigger and bigger and starts to draw you towards it. So the want reveals itself once you start experimenting with the different functions that you were assigned or that you were given. And then the want actually starts to draw you. So the doing happens by itself. And that's also where I believe a manifestation plays a big role. Because now you see this thing that you actually want, and slowly but surely your actions start to align to get you there. Day by day by day.
Would you say your manifestation connects up with your yearly, or I don't know how you do it, but your yearly or your quarterly or your monthly goals?
No. So it doesn't necessarily link up with the time period I had in mind. So what I mean about that is I always knew I was going to run my own business. I'm not 100% successful yet, but I'm getting there. I always knew I was going to be on TV some other day. Didn't know to what extent or when it was going to happen. I started auditioning for ads and for TV at the age of 19, just after school on varsity. But the door only opened for me at 30. So no, I didn't necessarily write it down, but it was a deeper want that started to evolve within me, because I realized, listen, at kindergarten I played a main role at some stage, and primary school I had that opportunity to play this role, and this means this vehicle's got a function or the ability to entertain. So how about this? How about being on TV someday and doing something that's quite lekker? And then obviously that time it was all ego driven, you kind of see the fame and you see, but as I grew deeper spiritually and mentally, you start to realize what really matters. Doesn't mean you have to put your dreams on the side. The intention just shifts. Instead of it all being about you, it's like, let's load some people into this vehicle, or let's make sure while we drive past the street, we leave a nice fragrance that everyone's going to remember. And yes, I get so lost into these thoughts that I lose what I wanted to say.
But you're expressing yourself beautifully. You don't have to worry about that, and you're answering the questions perfectly.
Yeah. So I always knew I was gonna at some other stage end up in the entertainment world. And your question again was? does my manifestations link up with the time period? And no, it doesn't. And certain things you can link up with a specific time period, but other things you should kind of trust that it will happen in the right time. And here's another example just to prove my point, is I entered for Survivor for season 7. It was a season just before mine. And I entered and I made it right to the final audition. And it's a few hoops you have to jump through. It takes about 3 months, and you jump through about 12 hoops. There's a lot of stuff you have to do. Psychological tests. It's a lot. And I was so confident I was going to go into the game that I told my close friends and family, I'm going to do this game. It's so freaking exciting. I'm going to
win it.
I didn't have that strong intention then yet, because I was still ego-driven. I realized now, looking back, entering the first time was still ego-driven. So I made it to the final round of audition, get a phone call the next day. Sorry, you didn't make it. All right, can you guys please tell me what's wrong? Why didn't I make it? No, we can't. Thank you. Cheers, man. Now you go do some introspection. You're like, what's wrong with me? And self-doubt and stuff. And it took me a while to work through that. But now looking back, I realized that wasn't the time yet. If I was on that season, I would have most probably been voted out first. Or, not that that's a bad thing, but the impact would not have been so great as it was in season 8. So I had to trust that it will happen in the right time. And then season 8 came, and when the season came, the manifestations or the idea or the want aligned with everything, and it was all worth it. So if I can now look back at Chappies of 4 or 5 years ago entering for season 7 and he didn't make it, I just like to tell him, hey, listen, bro, this is for the greater good. Just trust me that you don't want to go into this season. There's a better one waiting for you. No, my manifestations do not match the time periods I have in mind, and I'm okay with that. It doesn't let the want disappear. The want is there. If it should happen, it will happen in the right time, and in that I have faith, because I've experienced it a few times over.
So you have certain manifestations or goals, whatever you want to call them, but you don't base them in time.
No, not all of them. Certain business goals you can put on paper and try and make that happen, but there's certain ones that you don't necessarily even or ideals. Let me put it as ideals. There's certain ideals you don't even know what it looks like. So now you want to go put a time frame on when it should happen. I didn't know what winning was going to look like that time, but now I know what it is. I didn't know what impact was going to look like, but I knew it was there. Impact was there. I didn't know what dad was going to look like, but I felt in my heart what it must feel like, and now my experience is that. It is this amazing freaking experience that I wish everyone could have. It's better than what I thought it's going to be. So in some cases, picturing exactly what the ideal looks like might count against you, because most of the time it's so much better than what you thought it's going to be.
You'll probably limit it yourself.
Yeah, you'll most probably limit yourself. We're still recording. There we go.
Yeah.
So, does that answer your question?
That does. That does 100%. Chappies, I think this was really insightful, man. You're a deep guy.
Oh, thanks, Larry. Oh, well, is thanks the right word? I don't think I should say thanks. It's just, isn't that how we all should actually be?
Yeah.
Isn't that what's within all of us? We just sometimes too scared to reveal the mask and show the deeper, more emotional side.
I think also we don't allow time for these types of conversations, because we are sitting here, no cell phones, totally in tune with the conversation.
It's a dance we have.
But you don't get that opportunity as often just in the normal world. Or maybe there is opportunity, but we have too many distractions. We get distracted too easily. And that wouldn't allow this type of conversation to happen.
We don't value these conversations, and that's why we don't create time for it. And that's why then
we should probably search for them.
Yeah, search and create space for it. A space where we say, listen, any chat goes. Whether you are really shy about what you're going to talk about, let's just talk about that. It's our intention is to get more clarity. Our intention is to love each other a bit more deeply, because we understand now who we are. So why don't we just pull away all the shit and just talk about what really matters? If the ego surfaces, we laugh at it every now and then we just go back to speak about what really matters. And conversations like this is like, if one soul connects with another, it's such a beautiful dance that can possibly go on forever. And then once again, I believe it's because we're from the same source. It's like we actually from the same source. We intertwine in some sort of weird way that our minds don't understand. But if you're unconditional love and I'm unconditional love, it's like 1 and 1 is the same, right? And you dance the best with someone that understands your dance. Yeah, so a lot of the stuff might not make sense to people, but I think with someone that dances spiritually and philosophically, it might make sense.
They'll appreciate it.
Yes, they'll appreciate it.
And I appreciate your time.
Oh,
Thank you so much, chappies. I'm going to have you back to talk some business and, and
awesome.
some upper level, not as deep, but this was excellent, and I really do appreciate you making the time for this. Thanks a lot, man.
Just a pleasure, man. Thanks for inviting me, LaRue.
Thank you so much. Cheers, guys.